I'm pissed off. I can't believe that society fooled me into thinking I had to sacrifice everything in order to be successful. We've been told that the harder you work, the more successful you become. But what if the opposite were true? What if you could work just a few hours a day and still beat the competition? It's something that old me would have never believed. It's the sort of thing I would have thought soft, lazy people said as an excuse to not get to work. But then I read a book that turned everything upside down. It made me realize that I'd wasted half of my life grinding and stressing when I didn't need to. Because despite what the gurus may want you to believe, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can become wildly successful and still have a healthy, happy, balanced life. So in this video, I'm going to try and convince you to work less to have more success. But first, I need a coffee. So I used to be a proper hustle bro. I used to work 12, 14, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I didn't have time for friends. I didn't have time for family. I didn't have time for hobbies or for exercise. I would just work all the time. When I started my business around 2 years ago, that worked for me until it didn't. And the reason I worked like a dog was because I was running as fast as I could from where I used to be, which was homeless. And the solution to me felt like work as much as you possibly can. That's the only way that you can guarantee success. And it worked for me. Eventually it started to catch up and I started to have insomnia. This like patch under my chin just started to appear and I'm fairly sure it's from stress. And I started to feel lonely because I wasn't spending time with my friends. I started to have arguments with my partner because I wasn't spending time with her. And the decisions I made in my business started to become more reactive rather than responsive and more emotional rather than rational. And the business completely plateaued at $1 million a month. And in order to solve that, I tried hiring more people, and profits dropped and dropped. And then I saw this book on my shelf, Rest. It had been there for about a year. And I'd read the title and been like, hey, I get it. You need to rest. I don't need to read the book. Turns out I was wrong. So I started reading and was astounded by what I found. I'm going to tell you all about it at the park. So our adoration of busyness and hard work didn't always exist. It's something that's been brought about by the Industrial Revolution, where there was a direct correlation between the inputs, how hard we work, and the outputs being the products that we produce and sell. In that world, the harder factory workers worked, the more revenue factory owners produced. And so they were strongly incentivized to make us believe that working hard was somehow ethical, that it somehow made us better people. But in the modern day, when most work is knowledge-based, this breaks. The inputs and the outputs no longer correlate in the same way. Yet we continue to function off of that same belief. In the book, Rest, they talk about how scientists who worked 20 hours a week outperformed scientists who worked 50 hours a week. They won more Nobel Prizes. They had more scientific breakthroughs. They earned more. And when you look at the greatest minds across all sorts of industries, when the work is creative, 4 to 6 hours of deep work seems to be the sweet spot. If you go beyond that, you don't get the same output. You don't get better output. You get significantly worse output. But then you might say to me, what about Elon Musk? He's like the most successful dude alive, and he works like every hour of the day. Well, firstly, it depends on your definition of success, because, it seems like all his children hate him. He's overweight and he seems stressed and kind of miserable. But the book says that people like that have their success despite how hard they work, that they could have worked less and had just as much effectiveness, if not more. Because he's a genius, with a very valuable network and a ton of cash, he can get away with things that we cannot. And the reason working more leads to worse outcomes is because it doesn't allow us to access the subconscious. When we're in a state of rest, our mind is allowed to wander and we access the default mode network, which is where the mind's best ideas, lateral thinking, creativity, and problem solving all happens. It's why your best ideas happen in the shower, because you finally allowed your mind to stop racing. Additionally, when we have hobbies and hang out with friends and family and exercise and sleep well and do all of these things, our mind functions better, but we're also happier and we're under less pressure. And we cannot be creative when we're under severe amounts of pressure. Incredible creativity requires psychological safety. And there's a study showing that children outperform NASA engineers on creativity and problem solving. That's because children are in a constant state of play, fun, and curiosity. And in order to access those states, we need to be living a life that's worth living. So basically, we need to rest if we want to be our most successful. But that's just one of the reasons why we should rest. The other reason is it's nicer, it's a life worth living. Now, after reading the book, I have started to embrace this way of living. I work way less and I exercise every day and I socialize multiple times a week. I sleep early. Very, very quickly when I made that shift, I was back to happiness. I started to enjoy the creative process again. And I started to come up with more ideas, and the ideas that I did come up with were more powerful. And my business exited that plateau. I started to see the problems in different ways and have much more creative and clear solutions. And my anxiety around my business has dropped. So when problems do arise, I feel very calm, cool, and collected, which makes me a better leader and a better problem solver. So they're all the reasons why I think rest is critical to your success and your sanity, and you should start doing it immediately. Now, obviously, if you're lazy, if you're not doing any work, then don't listen to me. First, you need to establish a routine and a consistent amount of work day in, day out. But for those of you that work too hard and think that that's going to lead you somewhere good, please trust me, listen to this video, watch it on repeat, read the book. For your sake and your family's sake and your friends' sake, get out from your computer and go have some fun. All right, cool. So I'm going to head back, do about 4 hours of filming, and then I'll chat to you about how you can introduce more rest into your life. So you get that you need to rest now, but most people misunderstand what rest even looks like. Most people think that doom scrolling is rest, that binge watching TV is rest. These things aren't rest because they continue to stimulate the brain, and they actually stress us out because we know we should either be resting or working. What we want to do is work intensely when we're working and then rest intensely when we're resting. This requires two things. One is the permission to rest. If you're the sort of person that thinks you have to hustle every minute of every day, then you're never going to allow yourself to truly settle into rest. Once we've given ourselves permission to rest, we need to understand the deepest forms of rest so that we can perform at our best whilst living the good life. So some of the most powerful forms of rest are meditation, journaling, exercise, socializing, sleep, and any hobby that allows your brain to switch off, like cooking, surfing, knitting, playing guitar. If you allow yourself to do these things, not only will you be able to live a better, more balanced and complete, satisfying life, but you will find that you are clearer of thought, that you're better at problem solving, that you're more creative, that you have less anxiety and stress, that you're a better leader, that you're a better business owner, and that you are ultimately more successful in both life and in business. So why wouldn't you want that?